On this week's episode of DLN Xtend, we talk about users having the ability and right to upgrade their technology when and where they see fit. This episode of DLN Xtend is brought to you by DigitalOcean and Bitwarden. Welcome to episode 25 of DLN Xtend. DLN Xtend is a community-powered podcast. We take conversations from the DLN community from places like the DLN Discourse forums, Telegram group, Discord server, and more. We also take topics from other shows around the network and give our takes. I'm Matt, and with me are the fantastical people of Linux podcasting, Wendy and Nate. Wendy, what have you been up to?
Well, I spent the time to clean my desk this week, which was something that needed done, and I know it won't last for very long. My desk is everybody's gather place for stuff. Mom needs something, stick it on the desk. Dad has papers that need filed. They get stuck on the desk. Like everything gets put here. And then when you can't put paper in the printer because everything's piled on the desk, somebody gets frustrated.
Who's that frustrated person? Is that you, Wendy?
No, this was my husband that got frustrated because he was doing his billing. He works for himself, and so he needed to do billing, print out the bills and send them off. And there was no paper in the printer, and he couldn't get the printer open to put paper in it. It was so fun. So the desk has been cleaned off. Yay! And it'll last for all of 2 seconds, and then it won't be clean anymore. It's one of those never-ending stories like laundry. It's done for all of 2 seconds, and then you start all over again. But I did take the time to buy me something fun this week, and this is more on Matt's side. I bought some game stuff, and I don't know when I'm going to ever have time to play it because I know I won't have time this week. But I finally got the American Truck Simulator DLC for Washington and Idaho.
I'm waiting for the finger to get pointed at me for the blame on this one.
It is totally your fault because I wouldn't have discovered these games in the first place if it wasn't like, but there's these options and you can do it this way on Linux and you can make it work that way. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, maybe I'll check it out. And then next thing I know, I've got hours into trucking. Though I cheat like Zeb does, where I turn off the cops and I turn off your need for sleep. And in the Euro one, I have like a 5,000 liter gas tank, so I never have to stop for fuel. I pass in the emergency lane. It is get all your driving frustrations out. That's what.
Do you do what Zeb did with the caravans?
No, I do not crash caravans. But if you're in my way and you're a little car, I will plow you over. I don't have time for stopping.
Well, that definitely tells me that Matt is certainly the gaming enabler of the group.
That is no joke. That without a doubt, that is his job on this in the community.
I don't know what you're talking about. I would never enable you guys to buy games. I'm not responsible for the things you decide to purchase with your own money.
Nate, what have you been up to?
Well, I currently I'm on vacation, sitting in a room in a cottage in northern part of Michigan with my microphone sitting on top of my calendar planner binder thing that I keep all my stuff in. Well, I'm crouched over my laptop on a bed right now.
So all kinds of comfortable.
Outside of that, I've been working with Fusion 360 on Linux, of course, designing my garage renovation.
Oh, cool.
I did it on paper. I thought I could just do it on paper real quick, and then I can pull the permit and do whatever else I need to get it all approved and whatnot. And then as I did it on paper, I'm like, well, I need to change this. So then I got on a big eraser, and I'm like, this is silly. I have the tools. Why don't I just use them? So now I'm building it properly in CAD. I can adjust the design as I need to include like where I'm going to have the pull down access to the attic, the loft area, and so forth. So I can actually get that all done, get that all in there. It's been kind of fun. Fusion 360 is not the CAD system I'm most familiar with, but it's the most powerful thing I can use right now. And I really enjoy it. It's easy to use. And once you actually understand how it thinks, so I have to kind of retrain my brain a little bit.
Because it's a different program than the one that you have been using.
Yeah, for the last 10 plus years. This actually works. It works really well. It's just a little bit different. But it's been fun. I'm about halfway done with it. I've already tweaked the design already. Talking to some friends, I was looking for French door. And then someone said, why don't you use one of those barn doors, that slide. And I thought, that's a brilliant idea. because combine that with my other obsessions of automation, and I could very easily automate that door. So if I have my cell phone on me, that when it senses that I'm close enough, it would just automatically open up my door.
That would be handy.
That's the end state. Will that actually happen? No idea, but at least I can plan for it. So
you got a goal to work towards.
I have a goal. I have a nonsensical goal that's practical at the same time. So Matt, what have you been up to?
I've just been listening to a lot of music while I am still figuring out Ocean Audio and whether or not that is going to be my editing program or not. Just a lot of music. And I figured out that this is probably going to be, I think it's 3,800 songs I download every time I get a new device.
Wow.
And it is
That's a lot of
music.
And it is, well, here's the kicker. It's all free. I can legally download it, all free, listen to it how I want. I can even use it in videos or podcasts, etc., as long as they get attribution. And it's all
nice
video game remix music.
Oh, my daughter would love that. I think that's her running playlist on Spotify is mostly video game music.
Well, here's the thing. This runs across the gamut for genres. They'll take like the Sephiroth theme from like Final Fantasy VII and make it like this 8-bit orchestral metal mix. It's really weird.
Wow.
You listen to it and you're like, that is awesome. What I do is, and what they offer, they haven't updated the torrent in a while, but they offer 2 different torrents. There's one for about the first 3,000 songs. I think it's 1 to 3,000. It's about 15 gigs. And then they offer another torrent, which is about another 800 songs, which is about 5 or 6 gigs. Between the two, you can get about 3,800 songs. The cool thing that these guys do is they release music in like albums. So like they'll have a theme. So they'll pick a video game like a Sonic game or a Mario game or a Final Fantasy game, remix a bunch of music around that particular game. They have albums, which is stuff like that that's really cool about what and all the stuff that they do is community based. So it plays in really nice to the Linux way of doing things because they have a panel you submit music to get it published on the website. The judges will give the feedback and the community has the input on what goes before the judges and that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool, like open sourcey kind of way of music creation and feedback and stuff. It's just really cool.
Yeah, that is neat.
That's super cool.
And for those that are wondering, it's ocremix.org.
So I just pulled it up and I typed in Sonic and it's pulled up a whole bunch of Sonic music. My daughter is going to have a blast with this.
So, something else you can blame me for.
Absolutely.
The thing that's cool with these guys is that some of the game companies that have actually worked with these guys before, like Capcom.
Oh, that's nice.
Worked with OC Remix to, I believe it was for like Super Street Fighter HD. Like, I don't remember the actual remix name for it, but it was, they remixed one of the Street Fighter 2 games and they went to OC Remix to have them remix the entire album. And that was a collaboration between a company and the community. It doesn't happen very often in the gaming end of things. That was really cool to see. Okay, so for a bit of housekeeping for the show, as some of you may have noticed, there's been a few changes in hosts with me and Wendy joining Nate. We're both really glad to be here. As people have noticed, Eric has not been on the show to a lot of personal reasons, but I'm going to read what Eric had to say about it. Hi guys, yes, I have stepped back. I have had some health issues recently that make it difficult to participate in podcasts and otherwise create content. The new lineup is great and I'm really enjoying listening to the latest shows. I'd love to get back to it and hope to do so soon. Thanks for checking in. This episode of DLN Xtend is sponsored by DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. It's optimized to make managing and scaling apps easy with an intuitive API, multiple storage options, integrated firewalls, load balancers, and more. DigitalOcean recently announced new features and services such as a virtual private cloud in all regions, free of charge. This lets you create multiple private networks to isolate your workloads. Container Registries is now available to all users. Easily store and manage private container images and push images seamlessly to DigitalOcean's Kubernetes. You can get all of this plus access to their world-class customer support for as low as $5 per month. Get started on DigitalOcean for free with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN, and you can use that $100 credit for spinning up over a dozen droplets or even some monster-sized droplets for 2 months. Again, you can get started on DigitalOcean with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN. Das Geek recently talked about the right to repair. Now, this has been a big issue within a lot of the tech field, doesn't matter really. Apple and a lot of other tech companies making it almost impossible to repair your products or the stuff you buy. They're just making it really, really hard, and they fight constantly to not make it allowable for people to repair the stuff that they have bought. I mean, even companies like John Deere have gone so far to make it almost impossible to repair a tractor. Like, come on.
Which is super frustrating, especially when you're looking. So farmers have extremely small margins on the topic of a tractor. And then if it's something that they can't even fix themselves, then you got to go spend so much more money to have this computer worked on because you have to have a special tool to do it. That's just as frustrating as, okay, I dropped my phone and it cracked the screen. And now instead of being able to buy an original manufacturer part and have it fixed right, do it myself, or have this locally run shop do it, Apple or whoever wants me to just buy a new phone.
Well, I know that farmers also, they are very stringent on their time as well. They can't have equipment like that be down. And if it's a simple fix, I know this has been a big deal. And I've heard a lot of farmers talk. Yeah, that's very frustrating and has actually made the old tractors more valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you don't have to deal with a lot of this computerized stuff. I know I've got older vehicles and I have not wanted to upgrade because my husband can work on the vehicles we have now. And I know I need a new vehicle, but I don't want to go to stuff that's computerized that we have to spend how much more money on because you've got this special computer that has to be used in order to figure out what's wrong and all of these extra sensors that go bad so fast. It just feels like throwing away money.
You know, the solution to all that would be John Deere should just really use OpenSUSE Linux on other stuff. And that would really solve the
problem solved. Yep, absolutely. Problem solved. I mean, Ryan really goes into some very interesting stuff on his video. He, in that case, is really talking about one of the Mac products. There's the MacBook, I believe.
Specifically, he was talking, I believe, about the MacBook Air. But in general, he's talking about Mac products, generally speaking.
But that one, so much of the stuff was glued down, like really not meant to be replaced or easily repaired at all. I have seen some stuff, hints, especially coming from iFixit, about Apple starting some different repair outreach type programs. So maybe all of the community pushed back and saying, hey, we pay a heck of a lot of money for your stuff. We want to be able to fix it when it needs fixed instead of being upcharged. Maybe some of that is actually coming through from Apple. There might start be getting the hint there.
Apple proved authorized repair toolkits more widely available to like authorized partners or something along those lines. And it's just like, so
it might be a start and it might still be crap is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's Apple until you figure it out, because right now your two options basically boil down to buy another $2,000 Mac or $1,000 Mac, depending on your preference, specifically talking Apple here, of course, or find the nearest Apple store. For some people, that's not exactly close.
Right, yeah. Right. I think our nearest one, if I was an Apple user, is 2 hours away.
Yeah. So it's not economically feasible for some people.
Yeah, because I totally want to spend my vacations frustrated, standing there waiting for customer service to tell me that they can't help me.
Perfect. That sounds like the exact thing I'd want to do as well.
It's a party.
You mentioned, Wendy, like for me, this is why I tend to buy older machines or machines that I know I can specifically work on. And like, I don't expect to be able to replace everything. That's not what I'm looking for. Like, okay, the logic board's fried. Well, guess what? I can replace it, yes, but at the end of the day, what's the cost ratio here? You know, I can't do simple upgrades like RAM or hard drive or NVMe or whatever. If you can't do simple stuff like that, just because your drive's bad or you have a bad RAM module or something, you're getting to a point now where it's like, now you guys just want to have this e-waste throwaway kind of mentality. Right. Yeah. And it's really frustrating because my editing rig, I use an EliteBook A760W. That thing was like 8-shit. I can actually upgrade the GPU in it. So you can upgrade the GPUs in those if it's MXM. So I went from a GTX 480, give or take, and now I have a 770 card in it that I paid $35 for.
There's kind of a sweet spot. Like if the computer is not too old, also not that new, that a really good deal on relatively performant equipment without spending those high prices.
Yeah, and my kitchen system it fits right in that zone. So it's an HP 8300 Elite Slim desktop. But it's this little teeny thing that sits on the counter because I don't have a mounting bracket for it yet. But I mean, the thing runs awesome. You can pick them up between like $100 and $150. Mine came with an i5. I had an i7 from a computer that I tore apart years ago, same generation. So it was a clean swap out. And I mean, they work perfectly. No, could I use it for photo editing? No. For show notes and video content and looking up recipes and all kinds of stuff. The kitchen computer gets so much use. It's crazy and it's nowhere near a new machine. I should be able to keep that machine going for a long time.
Yeah, I did very similar with my kitchen computer. I spent actually about $150. This is about a year and a half ago now. I have not upgraded the CPU yet. I should do, but I really haven't had the need. I'll work on show notes with it, or I'll watch YouTube videos as I'm cleaning or making dinner or something like that. And I think it's just like
everybody
a refrigerator or microwave.
One, yes.
Yeah. But it should be a Linux machine. That should be a requirement.
Absolutely. But it's that being able to pick up stuff, older stuff, and being able to fix it and maintain it that makes it feasible to have one there.
Yeah. Without the ability to take it apart. I think Dell does a good job of keeping their equipment serviceable, at least everything I've ever purchased from Dell. I'm very weary of trying somebody else. Although I will say, on the right to repair, Tuxedo Computers, they encourage you to fix it or upgrade it yourself. And I find that really quite fascinating that they're all about that. They make their machines so you can take them apart and fix them and service them, upgrade them, and so forth. And I wish more companies would be like that.
I definitely agree, because let's be honest, really the only end of the spectrum for right to repair is if you go with enterprise machines still, because enterprise still requires an IT department. So therefore they require the ability to repair their stuff.
Well, and that's what my kitchen system is it was in an enterprise environment. Then they got swapped out kind of thing. So that's what makes them affordable that way, because there's a flood of the market as multiple companies are upgrading. But your average desktop that you buy from the store will have stickers on it that tell you if you open it, it voids the warranty, which kills me because dust. I mean, holy crap, especially where I live in an environment that is so dusty. Just taking the side panel off to clean out my machine is essential for the longevity of the parts in it.
Yeah, it really is. Like the ability to be able to repair your stuff or even clean your thing.
Maintain it. Yeah, just maintenance.
The fact that they limited it so much now, or, like say you take that side panel off and that sticker goes, because it's like I've bought laptops, like new ones, that I'm usually a nuke and pave the OS off the thing because I don't want any of the bloat. I don't want any of the bloat, even if it's Windows, Linux, whatever OS. So the problem is if you buy like a Lenovo or you buy an HP, like new, and you want to use Linux, you're kind of stuck with Windows if you want that service. And
unless you go with a company like System 76 or Tuxedo Computers, who are starting you out with not only a system that you're encouraged to upgrade and maintain, but put whatever on it that you want to have on it.
That sticker that voids your warranty if you open it up, that makes me think, what if you buy a car and they have a sticker over the hood so you can't even pop the hood to check your oil? It's kind of along the same lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great comparison.
Very basic. You need to be able to access your system in order to make sure it's running properly. I mean, that just to me seems like a no-brainer.
One company that does encourage you to tinker and change and morph and use and do what you will with is Pine64, because they have a new version of the PinePhone.
I heard, and I saw something on Front Page Linux about it. That looks
my gosh, it looks cool.
So for those that don't know, it's 3 gigs of RAM now. So they've improved and changed the amount of RAM that was in there. It is now 32 gigs of storage as opposed to the 16 eMMC that was in it originally. But this is designed for Convergence, ironically enough. It's the community and the hardware company working together to make this plausible. And they're launching at $199, which I think is a very compelling package.
Still cheaper than most phones.
Definitely.
Oh, by far. And most $100 phones that you can go pick up at your average big box store, it's going to have typically a version of Android on it so old that you're in security risk space.
Yeah, you might be running Android 8. Could be lucky you're running Android 9.
I highly doubt it, though.
Or if you're really, really, really lucky, you might be running Android 10, depending on the company. Odds are highly doubtful. So the fact that these guys are like, hey, just do whatever you want. We don't care. Here's post-market OS. Here's Ubuntu Ubi ports. Here's Graphene OS. Here's take your pick. We don't care is really, really compelling because these guys are doing everything with the community. They encourage tinkering. They encourage everything to do and make changes to the system and the hardware however you want.
It's like they're encouraging everything that Apple discourages. And that's why I like Pine.
Pine is doing a lot of the right moves. And it is awesome that they're working with the community and the community is getting behind them. To me, that is the biggest thing.
I'm really interested to see where they take this convergence part of it. And there's a lot of people that don't always have access to, a laptop, a desktop computer. While I say everybody needs a kitchen system, I know there's people out there that have, one shared computer for the whole family. And I'm extremely blessed to have all of the hardware that I have access to and that, my kids get to use. And this to me seems like one of those situations why I'd really rather sit down to a computer that's got a lot of power. I think something like this, especially from a company like Pine, that it might help some of those people that you've got a really small budget to work with. I need a phone device, and then I'd really like to be able to use a full keyboard to type out this paper or whatever that I need to do, and being able to do that on the same device through Convergence.
It's kind of like the Samsung DeX in a way, except not Samsung. So probably quite good then.
See, and I think I loved the idea of Samsung's, but for me, the PinePhone makes it better. For one, because we're running Linux on it, like real Linux on it. And for two, I feel that there's more likely to be updates sticking in that security side where a lot of those older handheld devices like that, they stop getting updates after a year or two. Or part of the reason why they're on the cheaper side is here you've got this lower end hardware and it's never getting a single security update. So this is a way to have both be budget conscious, have access to a keyboard, and have security patches.
And it's not specialized, nothing specialized. It's all like off the shelf components.
Right.
So
absolutely.
You can use whatever you want. And I think to me that's huge because that means that you're not locked in to certain expensive esoteric hardware.
Yeah, absolutely. And say you're running post-market OS on it, and then that one goes away. But maybe Manjaro has got their own version of it that you can throw on there. They can be useful for a long time after maybe the initial thought for them has turned to dust.
Well, yeah, because if you look at the original HP touchpad, people are still building Android against that thing. Like the open source.
I still have one. I still use mine.
people legit will build newer versions of Android against that because the cool thing with it, like what Pine's doing is the fact that it's a baseline target that developers for specifically applications can target and build on, and that the entry price isn't some exorbitant amount of a dev kit like you would get with other hardware requirements.
Yeah.
You are potentially making a whole lot better experience by having that open approach, and you can make the changes you need to in the software or the hardware or whatever so that it works better, that things can grow and evolve and change as they need to.
And then you can have these stuff go back upstream and help regular desktop Linux too not only work better in itself because the code getting updated, but us being able to have what we kind of talked about before is the UX package. That's where I'm going. The whole your different devices working together so that you have this even and smooth user experience across all the devices that you're using, and this is be part of that future. This seems to have been a really For the most part, hardware heavy show, Right to Repair, the new PinePhone. And we've got a little bit more hardware talk for you. You'd think I was on Hardware Addicts again.
No.
But no, I had a great conversation with some of the people in the community as we were talking about bad products. And most in particular, it was graphics cards and how companies kind of come back and handle it. A lot of what come up, especially was the Asus card. So there's people that really love Asus or hate Asus, and they got a pretty bad rap with the 5700 cards, I believe. So they had the really beefy ones, and on some of them, the heatsink was a bit loose, and it took a long time for that to get recognized, and then the fix that they had for it wasn't really great. There are some people that said, oh, I get one bad product and that's it. I'm out. I'm never buying anything from that company. Or people that were like, my response to if I purchase from them again depends on how they handle it. Are they honest? Did they come out and say, yep, we messed up. This is how we are fixing it to keep a good relationship between us and you, the customer who we rely on to buy our stuff. So Nate, when it comes to finally getting new hardware purchased and you've got maybe a series that's a dud, not just your individual, where do you fall on kind of how that should be handled?
Well, being in the product manufacturing business in the past, every company is going to make a turd from time to time. It's just going to happen. You know, there are these schedules and timetables that engineers have to meet, and so they're busting their butts to try and meet these schedules. And sometimes things just get missed. You know, sometimes like, I don't know what the heatsink, what the cause was of a loose heatsink, if it was bad adhesive or screw issue, so sometimes those things get, they just get missed. If your attitude was, well, I got a bad product from that company, I'm never buying from that company again, you're eventually going to run out of companies, and you're going to have to do some soul searching at some point in time, or just stop buying things. Because
buy nothing ever again.
Yeah, you can do that. That's fine, I guess. Because even like things that I really like, Dell's been good to me. I can't say that much bad about them, but when I have had things that were under warranty, they were always very good about it, and they make their stuff easy to repair. So I guess if I got mad at every company that had something break, well, I certainly wouldn't be using any of that vintage hardware that I enjoy, because that's all broken now.
Right? So yeah,
that's just crazy to think about. But yeah, no, I think people need to kind of calm down a little bit and have a little more grace toward companies, because companies are run by people, and people are naturally imperfect. Imperfect people make imperfect companies that make imperfect decisions. So I think we need to be a little bit more kind to one another on that. But it's really about the attitude of the company at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to make an oops and be like, yep, I'll fix that. It's another thing to make an oops and say, nope, it's your fault. So that's two different attitudes. And as long as the attitude is right from the company, then I think you should be able to give them some leeway.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's all about how the approach is. You get companies who have the superiority complex, a la, you're gripping the phone wrong. I'll let you determine who that is. Or, the System 76s, the tuxedos, where they're like, hey, we don't care. Just fix it. We'll fix it for you, whatever. It's all about how the point of contact doesn't end with just when you buy the machine. The point of contact is a year out, depending on how long their warranty structure goes for, a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's all about how those companies handle that stuff. Really, at the end of the day, if you give me good customer service and good customer support on something that I bought, I'm probably going to go back to you because mistakes happen, but you fixed it, or you did your best to fix it. That means a whole lot more. We all have, I've had bad GPUs before. I've had 88. This is going to kind of date me at this point, but I had a 8800 that I had for 2 months, and it just went pop and just stopped working. No. Yeah, that was one video. You're talking top of the line video card at the time, so that was $350 minimum. So people running into issues and writing off a company from one issue, go through the entire experience. How did they handle it? If it was a garbage experience from top to bottom, then I can understand why people might write it off. If you end up sitting on hold for 3 hours trying to get your GPU fixed, totally get why it's going to be like, I'm kind of not interested in this company anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, and then you get the runaround, because that's usually what most people complain about. So for me, if that top to bottom experience from making the call to the return process and all that stuff is good, then I'm not going to write them off because, like Nate said, eventually you're going to run out of companies. And if you're writing off GPU companies, you only got like 6.
You only got so many. So this is something that came up in the conversation of, more specifically, MSI telling reviewers that they shouldn't post review or they won't get any more review units for bad reviews.
Oh, okay. So I know where this
Yeah.
I know where this is coming from. For those that don't know, there was some YouTube drama about reviewers.
YouTube drama. No,
Never.
That doesn't happen.
Specifically around reviews related to GPUs, and there's been rumors and speculation about MSI, Asus, some of these companies saying, well, if we're going to blacklist you, basically, so that means you're not going to get advanced products, you're not going to get ahead of everybody to be part of the marketing, more or less. Because let's be honest, that's what a lot of these.
That's what they are. It's free advertising.
It's free advertising. What these guys are saying, from what I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Wendy, on this, is that they're talking about not just blacklisting, but also that these reviewers were basically paid for positive reviews. Because I believe it was Snazzy Labs, and there was a few other guys that had talked about this. I think companies that do that, those channels and those people should not participate with those companies, because those companies are looking to hide things.
Right. And that seems to be more the specific issue of not necessarily how your interaction is with customer service makes a big difference. If any of you have listened to one of the last versions of Hardware Addicts, I had 1 week where it was like 3 or 4 different things of mine broke, and I spent almost the whole week dealing with different customer service departments. So yes, I'm fully aware of how that not only has a reflect of how you continue to feel about the product, how you'll recommend the product, but just your overall interaction with the company makes a big difference. But we have sometimes these cover-ups where it could be going on here with MSI. When I come across, these different reviews for Asus, and it was, if you got a good card that didn't have this issue, then your card won great, everything was awesome. But if it did have this screw issue, which Asus was extremely slow to recognize was an issue, there was major heat issues. It just was not cooling the way it's supposed to. So the card wasn't running properly. And I know that made me steer away this generation of Asus AMD graphics card XFX. So I was looking at them, and the first generation of their thick cards got not so great reviews. They're like, it's all right, but if you have the opportunity, get this instead. They took that feedback, said, yep, we see where we've messed up. We see what the problems are. And they launched the Thick 3 version, which addressed those problems that they were having. So that to me was like, maybe I'll go with them and this version of the card, because it's not we never mess up. It was we see the faults in this version of it. We see how we can make it better. Let's produce a better card for you.
There are companies who will do that. As a perfect example, AMD. Look at their AMD FX processors. You have that gradual changeover to Ryzen.
Yeah.
And now we're on the third gen of third or fourth, whatever. We're on the 4000 series of Ryzen processors. They are trouncing the competition. And that is because they took the time, the engineering, and they took all the complaints and all the other issues. Like heating isn't nearly as much of an issue with the AMD stuff as it used to be. There's just so many layers that have changed because they took the time to listen. Now, what their partners do with that's on the partners more than it is like AMD as a brand. They probably could have a little more quality control. Yeah, sure. But I've had bad third-party NVIDIA cards, EVGA. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to write them off. I'm going to be more concerned about how they respond to those problems. So if they come back and things are massively improved, great. If things are not, then I'm still going to probably steer away from you. As an example, I have an MSI card. I have an MSI Radeon Vega 64, and I have not had one problem with this GPU at all. I might look at MSI again, for the 5700, or if I decide to upgrade anytime soon, based on prior experience. So sometimes it's about taking a gamble too, because how many times have we looked on a Amazon review or X, Y, or Z review and been like, oh, well, this has got like a 54% when it's 5 stars, and there's a couple of 1s, and then there's a couple of 3s and 4s. So you're like, oh, 3s and 4s aren't terrible. That's the middling experience. That's what a lot of your purchases are. You can only be as informed as you want to be. And sometimes believing it's a conspiracy, that all these guys are involved, etc., doesn't help your research, because then your lens for your research is every one of these guys is bought.
Yeah.
And going through life without nuance and understanding that companies change, things change, that is not going to help you make your decisions. It's going to get you what you're looking for. I don't want to say it's narrow-minded, but I think it's short-sighted to have a one-and-done approach when it comes to, especially like GPUs. There are so many other things to have that mentality with, like, why a GPU company?
Well, and I think for some people, it's because it's one of those really expensive parts that's a big deal when they get to upgrade. So when it doesn't work, it's kind of more of a hurt feeling.
Like, I can get that, but if my Samsung refrigerator decides to boot the bed, as it were, that sucks. Not going to buy a Samsung refrigerator on this round. There are just times to move on, especially depending on that company response to something like that. Now, if MSI's response for this particular case was slow, or they were legit talking about blacklisting people, then yeah, I'm not going to say I wouldn't buy MSI, but I would be wary of MSI. My approach to that would be like, be cautious. Just like, a lot of the Linux community wants to be cautious with with Microsoft products, as an example. Be cautious, give them kind of the stink eye, evil eye look, but begrudgingly, like, okay, but I'm watching you look.
Well, I think positive constructive criticism, not to look back on a previous discussion, but you tell MSI not, hey, your products are garbage, but you say, hey, this went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically call it out without being insulting, then I think you get a better response out of the company too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I like we discussed, I think if you take the criticism and make it as constructive as possible, and like, bam, 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 here's why this doesn't work, this is why this is bad, it helps out tremendously to track down issues. Could be a manufacturing issue, could be a glue issue, it could be whatever. I'm just using the graphics card as an example.
To me, it depends on what the company's reaction is. If they say, oh, yep, we messed up and here's how we're fixing it this way, then I'm totally cool, because I make mistakes all the time, like all the time. So I expect that, companies are going to make mistakes. You have a ton of people in the lineup creating this one product that's going out, and it could be, an issue in one department that, gets away. So I know that issues are going to happen, that it's not only just a bad product, but, you end up with a bad line, and just being honest about it. That's all I want. That's all I want from companies is, I know you're human. I know it's run by humans and stuff happens. Just be upfront with me and tell me what you're going to do different. And I am more willing to give you my trust for that next time. This episode of DLN Xtend is brought to you by Bitwarden. Bitwarden is the easiest, safest way for individuals, teams, businesses, and organizations to store their passwords. Not only does it have great features, Bitwarden is open source, has had third-party security auditing. Get started for free by going to bitwarden.com/DLN. I've been using Bitwarden for a while now and love it. Not only does it help me keep track of my hundreds of passwords, yes, there's hundreds, because you should have a unique password for every website you go to. It also includes a random password generator. That way, you can have a randomly generated password for each and every website that you use. Not only does it have great features, Bitwarden is open source, has had third-party security auditing, and you can get started for free by going to bitwarden.com/DLN. Want some of their premium features, like 1 gigabyte of file storage or Vault Health reports? Maybe you just want to support the project. That starts at only $10 a year, not $10 a month, not $10 a week, $10 a year. Jump over to bitwarden.com/DLN to get started with your free account right now. Because I know you usually have something all kinds of strange for us, Matt. What do you got?
As far as weird, strange things, distro-wise, I don't have one this week.
That's amazing.
But I am going to plug a project, and this one is called Kaos, or Kaos, however they want to be announced, pronounced, whatever. This is a 64-bit Qt only, uses Pac-Man, but it's its own thing. Specifically solely focused on Qt apps and like one library. So it's think Fedora, the way Fedora approaches GNOME in GTK. So the default experience is going to be a lot of Qt. They have a user repository that has some GTK stuff, but their official repositories, it's 64-bit only, Qt only, everything. So if you are looking for Steam or 32-bit, you're out of luck, huh? Wrong distro. You don't see many distros with that kind of laser focus on something, because usually, let's be honest, most distros try to be the general end user distro. So especially when it's Qt focused, and like that is where they want to go. I like Elementary OS for its focus. So I can appreciate what these guys do. The other weird oddball thing is a video game. Shock, surprise.
Never.
Another one you'll have to buy.
Fooling.
Another one. This one is called Project RIP. The best way to describe this game is Doom 2016 meets a horde mode for a game. So it's just waves of enemies and how long you can last. But it's
I can already tell you now, I won't.
It's $13. So
I'm watching the gameplay on Steam right now, and I guarantee I can't make it through the first big horde in Doom 2016 now. There is no way I'm even going to attempt this.
Well, maybe something for your husband.
Yeah, he could probably survive for a while.
And this is a Linux native game. So if anybody's looking for that Linux native, Doom game that doesn't require Proton, well, here you go. And it's $13.99, I believe, right now, or $12.99 on Steam. Nice graphics, looks good, plays good, solid. I got no complaints on it. I will state that this is a mature rated game. Don't get that twisted.
Definitely.
Expect all the bad things with a M rated game.
Like Doom. I would expect most people to realize that, because Doom is very much not a kid's game either. I wouldn't sit my 5-year-old down to that one, and you definitely wouldn't want to do that with this one.
I just want to make the caveat nonetheless. So, Wendy, what have you been working on, though?
I've actually been playing with RawTherapee a lot more this last week, and I'm figuring there's more stuff that I really like about it. So if you have been starting to follow me on Instagram, I have shared some different screenshots throughout the week as I'm working on stuff and things that I've found that I've liked, or things that I've at least found that are different. And here's one thing that absolutely drove me nuts. So my husband does some metal art. And of course, when you are married to a product photographer, the natural thing is for your wife to take pictures of your artwork. So I had some set up, had everything, I'd taken the picture, I'd loaded up on the computer, had it in RawTherapee, and it was sideways. And I, for the life of me, could not find the gosh dang button to rotate it so it would be vertical. Because I'm used in Darktable that there's a module and you rotate it. And I mean, I sat there forever and was so frustrated jumping back and forth between tabs. And they have a crop tab, and I figure it has to be in there. So I kept going back there and I couldn't find the stupid rotate button. Yeah, it's just above the picture in the bar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they make it really simple and easy to find. So that's just the joys of trying to learn a new program. But I have to say that the color handling that RawTherapee has right out of the gate, I have come to love. I love to take pictures of food too. I take some pictures of some steaks that I'd salted because they were going to sit for the rest of the day so the salt could dissolve and melt into the steaks. And I pulled those up both into RawTherapee and Darktable. And in Darktable, they didn't have that bright red, vibrant color that they were supposed to have. And the color accuracy directly out of RawTherapee has me really leaning towards a major workflow change. And like I said, I've shared a picture of that on my Instagram, Lifts in Linux. So if you want to follow me in some of this, because I'm not done. I'm not done learning about RawTherapee. There's still a million things I need to figure out how to do and get a workflow down and figure out all that it can do now that I know how to rotate a picture. So Nate, now that you've been you're working on getting your garage updated, what else do you got going on?
After the garage CAD work is done, I'm away from home right now. I'm going to be working on learning packaging with the intent of doing a bit more with the OpenSUSE project.
Awesome.
Now, I've said this before, and I have gotten some places before, but then I get sidetracked. I work on something else, and I totally forget what I've learned. So I still have my notes, and I still have like my resources and whatnot. But there's just some applications I want to work on packaging and seeing if I can get more involved in that side of the OpenSUSE world. So that's what I'll be working on as time permits from the next few weeks. So
are these packages that aren't already included, or?
Some of them, yeah. Some of them are available in snaps, maybe. Here's the intent. I want to be able to cheat. Instead of running like a list of all the things that I want to install, I just want to create like a Cubicle 8 meta package that just installs everything I need, and then I can just store it on the OpenSUSE OBS so that it'll just pull all the latest packages. So just kind of work really hard to be really lazy, if that makes any sense.
That sounds good to me. That's awesome.
So yeah, that's the plan there.
We'd like to continue this discussion with you on Telegram, in Discourse, Mumble, or Discord. Visit the DLN website for more information on how to connect to the social channels and also on shows and creators at destinationlinux.network.
You can find more information about me at cubicle8.com. Links to my regular written blatherings, podcasts, and YouTube channel nonsense can all be found there.
You can follow my ramblings on Twitter at MattDLN.
And you can now find me on Instagram at Linux and Lifts. You can find that link in the show description. There you can see what I'm doing currently on Linux, different shows that I'm involved in, and of course, the change or figuring out of RawTherapee, plus what I'm up to in fitness that week. That's why it's called Linux and Lifts, because we're fit geeks too.
As always, we thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode of DLN Xtend. Until then, have a great week, everyone.